Hey everybody, welcome to Murder Moose, Murder Moose, Murder Moose. And with me today, again, and we're going to make a little cool kind of announcement, is Jerry. Jerry, how you doing, my dude?
I am doing so good. Thank you for having me back on.
No problem, man. And I'm going to have more of you on because you talked about it and you're going to help fill in while Josh is away. So you're going to kind of be the temporary co-host to fill in, which is dope.
Yeah, dude, you're going to get so much hate mail.
Again, if we get hate mail, it's publicity, right? I don't.
Why would? When I was the co-host of Pod and the Pendulum for like the first 100 episodes, any hate mail that we'd usually get would just say "fire Jerry," and it's just like, dude, that's such a random hill to be on, just.
So it's funny because when I had my first podcast, it was our Hearthstone podcast. It was called Tier 5, and we never got I was the crazy out there one, as you probably can tell. And yet, the only time we ever got hate mail was because my co-host made a joke about a female Hearthstone streamer. And he was like, "Who's that?" He was joking around. And it was just like, oh my God. And I was like, out of everything that's ever happened with me in everything, and I'm sitting there making all the dick jokes possible. And it's my co-host saying something random like that that's going to get people pissed off. And it was like,
well, it's funny. It's a lot of the hate mail would be like, "Oh, these guys, it sounds like just two drunk uncles talking about movies," and I was thinking, so what's the problem?
Exactly. That's right up my alley. That's like you're gonna go. You're trying not to sell this to people. This sounds like you're trying to sell it to people, and you're getting. I don't know, man. There's so much content in this world. There's so many podcasts. There's so much YouTube. There's so much everything, and you're gonna go out of your way. We'll never understand going out of your way to
sound different
hate on something.
Well, that or there's so many people, and I'm not throwing shade in any shows, or I guess maybe, but there's so many people that they sound like Dick Clark on their podcast, but when you meet them in real life, they're super chill. Dude, I'm from the Valley. I'm never gonna sound I'm never. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, dude, it's that I hate because it comes with being around streamers and shit like that when they're or podcasters and you get on the "Hi everybody, I'm doing the American morning show wacky co-host voice, woo hoo hoo," and it's like fucking Krusty the Clown or some shit, and I'm just like, what? Just be your I don't know. It works with some people and whatnot, and I understand, but it's just you guys are. It's not necessary, man, and it's but. That's why morning show shit is the way it is, right? That's why I talk about Lords of Salem yet again, where they do their goofy ass morning show late night. They're overnight
sound effects,
show, right? Yeah, you're this doesn't work with you psychopaths, but yeah. So, man, I know you have been wandering around. You got a bunch of really cool shit coming up on your plate. I don't know when you can start talking about all your crazy cool shit, but man, you got some exciting stuff. We'll talk about it when it happens.
Oh, no, it doesn't matter to me. I have no secrets going on.
Oh, even your are you allowed to talk about the interviews you're doing yet?
They're happening in the next couple days, so I can't imagine.
Okay, so by the time this comes out, yeah. Okay, yeah, so you get to go, dude, how fucking cool is it? You get to interview Jamie Lee Curtis and fucking John Carpenter and Blum, and there's a couple more.
Yeah, I'm doing the junket for Halloween Kills, and basically the whole cast and crew. David Gordon Green. I was telling my older brother about it, and he's not into movies or anything. So I was telling all these people, and he's like, "Oh, who cares?" And then I said, "And Anthony Michael Hall, the nerd from Breakfast Club," and he almost shat his pants. What? That's the one that you're stoked on. But yeah.
Jamie Lee Curtis, who's been doing shit for 100 fucking years.
Beverly Hills Chihuahua, dude.
Beverly? Okay, who did that? Because I don't know Beverly Hills Chihuahua, if we're being honest. Who did that movie?
Oh, I don't know. I know that she was the aunt in the first one, but I have kids, so I'm so knowledgeable on Shinso, Yeah. I just thought it'd be funny to ask start with Halloween Kill stuff and then go into what was your motivation in Freaky Friday?
No, I just want you to ask her if how often people told her that, like, you really shouldn't ask her this, but like, how many times has someone asked you or told you they jerked off to her scene in True Lies? It's really
Trading Places,
dude. Yeah, dude, that scene in True Lies is that woman is. It's like up there. I feel like I start thinking of like memorable like dance scenes with like beautiful women in movies, and that's up there. And then I think of Selma Hayek in From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah.
But man, and also, what do you call her? And as we were messaging around, because I was watching Return of the Living Dead yesterday, the scene with her getting up on the
trash.
tombstone. Yeah. She is, man. That's like my wife was sitting.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, not even just her. I mean, that whole group is the coolest motherfuckers ever in a movie.
Yeah. Well, the one dude always reminds me of like what do you call him from Friday 4? The dweeby guy who did his dance. What the fuck?
Crispin Glover.
Yeah, Crispin Glover and his dance. He reminds me of Crispin Glover more like in like the not Friday in Back to the Future with that kind of like that plaid-ish like or weird pattern coat that he's wearing in that movie.
Yeah.
Like, man, it's no those guys in that movie, man. It's like that whole cast is it's very like Rat Pack of like horror movies kind of like it had that kind of vibe to it, right? Kind of so Brat Pack, I should say, not Rat Pack, but yeah. So dude, that's so fucking dope though. Like you get to talk to all those really amazing cool people for a movie that like when is your actual review like when's the thing up for Kills reviews? Because I know you got to go see it, but like
get to watch it again tomorrow actually.
Nice, man. Dude, that's so fucking cool.
No, like
I am
I think the 15th is when it's officially released, so I don't know if the embargo is until then, so I've just been kind of like a pumpkin and a knife.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you don't want to sit there and like go any like say anything. And I know it's funny, man, because I have my buddy Dave used to be one of the managing like editors at Collider, and he quit because he couldn't handle their shit. But he got sent this. The Rock has an energy drink. I don't know if you know this.
Yeah, it's good.
Dwayne Johnson. Yeah, and he got sent a little mini fridge with like the energy that looked like an Xbox for some reason, and it had the energy drinks in it. And he opened it on his Twitch, live on his Twitch, and then like because they hadn't put a fucking like a release date like when you could do it on it, and so he did the stream, and then he like gets off the stream and he's getting the messages from Microsoft like people going, hey, you broke the street date for this, and he's like, well, you didn't put one in there, you motherfuckers. You just sent me this box.
He's like, I drank them and I had energy. I had to do something.
I had to do something. We were sitting there and we were arguing with him because I was in his chat when it happened. We're like, it's an Xbox. And he's like, no, it's not. And it was just a mini fridge, and like a real mini fridge that like.
I get sent a lot of that stuff, like the press stuff.
Yeah.
And I always want to be so excited and post stuff about it, but then the moment I do, there's usually like 3 or 4 assholes that like it's like, oh, you're just doing that for clout, or like they're so pissed that like the studio send us stuff.
They didn't get it,
and it's like, dude, like I'm sorry. I mean, that sounds like it's a you thing, dude.
Yeah, well, that's the thing, man. People are like, they're always like about the cool perks of that shit, but like they're not the ones like writing 18 freelance articles for like, no money and like no clout that nobody ever reads kind of shit, right? It's like they're just like all about like when you get the good shit, right?
Yeah.
So it's
that, or like I remember last year there was one day that there was like a Twitter like glitch and anyone that was verified couldn't tweet. But nobody realized that we could still read them. And so like there's so many people that were like, quote unquote friends that were just talking shit about all of us that have the blue check mark. And like I couldn't respond, so it's just like I would just like every one of those tweets.
Yeah. So I don't know him really well, but there's this guy who's a streamer, and like he's in his 40s, like he's like mid 40s, but he's got like a teenage daughter who I don't know all the specifics because there's a court case going, but like his daughter got like disappeared for like 3, 4, 5 days. It was like a scary shit. Like during that time, people were like, giving him shit. Like, he was clout chasing something. So he applied for the fucking check mark because to keep that shit from happening. He ends up getting it. And like people were crushing this motherfucker the whole time about it. And it's like, it's a fucking check mark on Twitter.
Dude, how obsessed so many people are about that other than the people that have it. Like I've had it for 5 years and it has brought me nothing.
Yeah.
It's like, it's weird.
My favorite is my buddy. He's a streamer, but his Twitch name is Ezekiel_III, and it's Ezekiel III. But he got his check mark last year during the NFL season, and so as soon as he got the check mark, every time the Dallas Cowboys play, like angry fantasy football fans like find him on Twitter and they say Ezekiel and they start tweeting like trashing this motherfucker because his shitty football performance, and he's not a football player. It's just because he has a check mark. He responds to these idiots, and it's always fucking hilarious because it's just like this random ass shit, and it's just like because people are mad about fantasy football.
Well, that and like, dude, I was cursed with the name Jerry Smith. Which it sucks for two reasons. Three. One, it just sucks. It's just a shitty name. Yeah. But two, I can't go to a single dispensary without them laughing with some Rick and Morty joke. And three, there's a very famous, I think, Chilean or Latin pop singer with the same name. I get so many of his fans following me and like tweeting at me, and it's just like, dude, look at the picture. Like, I'm the whitest dude ever.
And this just reminded me of that because so my wife had a black guy hitting on her at work. She works at Home Depot while after looking for a real job, but she works for Home Depot. She had a black guy hitting on her, and she's like, I'm married, but she doesn't always wear her ring because she's got real sensitive skin. So like her finger will like get all swollen up and shit. And this guy was like, asked her what her husband's name was. This black guy who was hitting on her. She's like, Rodney. And she's like, oh, you already like black guys, huh? Just like, I'm like, yeah, there's like three of us, but like, I'm like, holy ball. Yeah, it's funny how names are just like a thing that people don't like. Man, I always tell that to friends. I'm like, when they're having kids, I'm like, make sure that their name isn't like immediately like just shit on, like you could shit on someone, and it's like you'll never know what kind of name means anything. Like,
dude, I purposely gave my kids names that they probably would get shit on for. Like, I named my son Dexter. Like, who's not going to make fun of someone named Dexter? Like, God bless the Showtime show for changing that a little bit. But my daughter's named after the Black Dahlia murder. Like,
dude, I told my wife a long time ago, like I told you this, we were struggling for kids, but I was like, if we have a son, I'm going to name him Ender. And she goes, why? I'm like, because fucking Ender's Game, the book is amazing. Not the fucking movie, but like, I have sick pleasures with that movie. Like, I enjoyed it because I knew what that movie is. The book is all based on the fucked up outcome of the twist ending. But man, oh shit. Yeah. So that's you. So you have a lot of cool Friday shit or Halloween shit coming down, which is fucking awesome. And speaking of Friday, they did solve the Friday the 13th lawsuit got settled recently. Was that like a Wednesday? It happened. It got settled.
I'm stoked on that. But like, there's so many things that come with it. I think that a lot of people aren't getting. They still can't use like adult Jason or like the name Crystal Lake, I think, or something like that. So
I don't even know. Can they use Friday the 13th? I don't know if that.
I think they could use that name because that was the original one. But there's so much. I feel like they should just put those two dudes in a room, let them fucking MMA it out. Like, dude, they're both gonna die. But
like, these motherfuckers are fighting. Like, they're such assholes. Like that, like, and I don't blame the writer as much, but like they're fighting they're like losing money fighting this while they could be making shit tons of money if they would just make a fucking agreement. But like, again, we know, what do you call them, who fucking directed the first. Sean Cunningham is kind of a giant douche.
Well, that and the thing is, Victor Miller has never said a single negative thing about the series. He loves the fact that he's tied to the first one. Sean Cunningham hates the series so much until he sees that dollar.
Oh yeah, dude, we were talking about it, and it's like that motherfucker hates the hockey mask on Jason, and you're like, that's the only reason. Your fucking second movie was the town that dreaded sunshine, or whatever the fuck that movie is called. Like you just put a bag over his fucking head. It's like not original at all, and you're just like, and you hate that, and you make a movie that is the least fucking Friday the 13th movie of all time. You make fucking Jason Goes to Hell, which is not a fucking Friday the 13th movie. It's some weird people give shit to Halloween 2 not being a Halloween movie. That movie is way more a Halloween movie than fucking Jason Goes to Hell is a fucking Friday the 13th movie.
Dude, I am so on board when franchises, they usually release at least one batshit sequel. But Jason Goes to Hell isn't a batshit sequel. It's just the biggest shit movie ever. And people always complain. And I got into someone on Twitter with it this week where they were just talking down about the Friday the 13th movies. But they talk down about how formulaic they are. But that's the ones we love. It's when they deviate so drastically from what we love that I don't want a Jason fucking worm. What the hell?
Jason Worms, you don't want a porno disguised as a Jason movie that doesn't even have Jason in it. I mean, it's just everything. Universally, Jason Goes to Hell and Jason 5, I think, are the least fan favorite of the two, right?
What's funny is when I was on Pod on the Pendulum hosting that, we did an episode. Because that podcast was all about franchises, so every sequel would get its own episode. And when it came to Jason Goes to Hell, I was pretty vocal about how much I've always despised this movie. Yeah. Then the next week, there was this bonus episode with the director of Jason Goes to Hell. And I was going to be on that episode, but I was told that the director listened to the previous episode and his wife was cussing me out while they're listening to it. So I faked being sick so I wouldn't be on that episode. That dude hates me with a fiery passion.
Dude, it fucking makes me laugh real bad because that movie is you go and look at it. That dude was a fucking puppet piece for Sean Cunningham. And I mean, he hired him right out of film school. And everything like that, and it's that was Sean Cunningham trying to get his fucking way and make everything the way he wanted it. Mm-hmm. And you go, dude, Sean, go keep making House sequels where you belong. And that dude, I someday I want to talk about House just because I want to talk about that motherfucker's sweater for an hour and a half.
Dude, House 2, also House 2, how fucking weird,
House 2.
Dude. House 2 is the complete opposite of House, but in a good way. Yeah. It's such a weird 1-2 punch of movies that have nothing to do with each other, really.
Yeah. I actually messaged Brian. I was messaging Brian, I think from Dead in Santa Carla while I was the first time I watched House, because I hadn't watched it until they did it on their podcast. And I'm like, did these motherfuckers do all the cocaine in Hollywood while they were writing the script and directing this movie? Because that movie is so batshit crazy in a good way, but batshit crazy. And I'm like, man.
I wrote an article about that 80s vampire movie Vamp for Scream Magazine, and I turned it in yesterday, and I couldn't resist writing about how much cocaine was probably used in that movie just to see if it would be in a magazine on shelf somewhere, just me talking about vampire cocaine.
Dude, it's funny because we're talking about Midnight Mass here in a little bit, but that's very kind of got that kind of vibe, right? With the vampire blood is cocaine or something like that. It's funny. I looked after you were talking about that article, and that movie is on Tubi. So I may go watch this here in the next couple of days and check it out.
I love that movie so much.
Yeah, dude, it's weird, man. It's funny. So I didn't I don't know. I watched whenever I did watch Near Dark. That movie, I liked it, but that is another one of those movies that gets so much love from people that I was like, this movie's entertaining, but it's not nearly as batshit crazy as I want from a vampire movie. And like, so if you're gonna do batshit crazy, give me like, Fright Night or Lost Boys, because that shit is like peak 80s crazy vampire shit. Near Dark feels like you know what Near Dark feels like to me, and I'm not trying to be an ass, because I think it kind of feels like an 80s Twilight movie, like it with like a little more grit to it, because it's like a love story, not like a vampire movie. You know what I mean?
It feels like an A24 vampire movie in the 80s with synths.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more of a drama, I think. And I think the legend of that movie kind of precedes it in some ways. I love Near Dark, but at the same time, like how mythical people make it out to be.
Yeah.
Like, it's a great movie, don't get me wrong, but like, you know what I mean?
It gets sold as being like this fucking perfect movie, and then you go in expecting an 80s cool vampire movie, and you're like,
basically like a Western almost.
Fuck. Yeah, it's a really strange, and the vibes are way different from a lot of, which is good, but it's like, it doesn't, like, the vampirism is like a set piece, not like the focus. And
yeah,
like,
I love the vampire sequences. Like Bill Paxton is one of the coolest motherfuckers ever in that movie. But it's the love stuff that comes off so over dramatic, especially when in the truck. Like
that's why I said like it's the Twilight things about it, where it's like it's way more like Romeo and Juliet vampirism, and like than it is like the movie's still really, really good, but man, it's like, this isn't my cup of tea most of the time, which is, I mean, again, if you're listening to this and think I'm shitting on Near Dark, it's when you hear, you can confirm this, like when you have something that's either from before you're born, or you're like you just hit, like you never saw it, and like it gets talked up so much. Like I saw Texas Chainsaw later in life. I saw The Exorcist later in, like, I saw that a long time ago, but I wasn't like a teenager anymore. Like, I think a lot of that stuff gets like built up and built up and built up so much that you go, there's no way it can ever live up to what the hype of like people you put up things. Like if you're 35, 40 and have never seen The Shining, I don't know if The Shining is ever going to be like, can live up to The Shining that people have been telling you about for, 35, 40 years, right?
And like there's this preciousness about a lot of classic movies, or movies that are considered classic, that like if they don't work for someone, then suddenly people get like offended. Like, to be honest, and this kind of goes with like Midnight Mass and other stuff, I prefer Dr. Sleep, to be honest. The director's cut of Dr. Sleep, I think, is still Mike Flanagan's best movie. And like that movie single-handedly like just spoke to me as a recovering alcoholic in ways that like The Shining, like, that didn't make me want to stop drinking. That just made me want to like kill my kids,
Yeah. So I need to see the director's cut of that, because I've never seen it. Like it was really weird with me, because I had it's funny, like when I met T, he's on the podcast Handle with Scare on the podcast network. We met at BlizzCon in 2019, and he was going to see that movie like at an early screening. I'm like, oh, that's cool. And I saw it. I'm like, this movie's awesome. It doesn't feel like a horror movie to me. It really doesn't. Like it's that weird, like it's this weird drama. Like it's like a supernatural road adventure kind of thing. I don't know. Like I enjoyed the hell out of it. And then it was like, Josh has talked about on here, like he hates the ending of that movie because it feels so like tacked on compared to like the rest of that film, and you hear about what the studio did with it. So it'd be interesting to go and see what the actual director's cut.
I watched the theatrical and I was like, man, this is a pretty cool movie. I watched the director's cut and I was like, this is one of my favorite movies of all time instantly. The director's cut is like such a good example of a director's cut being such an improvement on the first one. And like there's so many movies throughout the years that like have these like fabled director's cuts out there that like I would like to see. I'm not going to start a whole campaign like release the whatever cut, but like The Crow City of Angels, I like that movie, but God, that movie was so butchered that I'd like to see what was originally intended.
Well, I think about things like, dude, I mean, because we live in the time we live in, this is 2021, and like you go and look at what happened this year and you compare the Snyder cut of Justice League and you compare it to what, the shit show that was the studio slash, what do you call him? Josh asshole Whedon cut of that movie, and you go, which I didn't hate that movie, but then you go watch the fucking Justice League movie and it doesn't feel like it's like the Whedon cut of Justice League felt like a 6-year-old playing with action figures with CGI special effects on top. And we talk about like all the time things like fucking like Event Horizon. Event Horizon has one of those mythical, never going to be seen director's cuts because the fucking studio cut 45 minutes off of that movie because it's still one of the dumbest things ever. You give this motherfucker $60 million to do this movie and then you just fucking cut it off like this and then you put it in mines and whatever the fuck they did to store the film and you're just like, what is I will never understand investing that much money in something and then just fucking with it.
Well,
and
did they not read the script of Event Horizon? Because I can't imagine that anyone would read that script and then be surprised with like the blood orgy stuff and all the stuff that was cut out. Yeah, I don't understand studios, but it's weird.
Studios are, man, it's like chopping the dicks off of Michelangelo. Like you make this giant like masterpiece painting and then going, I don't like this, and then knocking the dick off. It's just like the same kind of thing. It's like
they don't see creativity very much. Like I was up for like a feature this last year, and it was going to be a really good paycheck, and I was so excited. And the people people that referred me, that was trying to hook me up with it, they were so gung ho. And the director was like, "Yes, let's get Jerry." And I was like, "Yes, finally a feature that already has distribution, like something that's going to come out."
Yeah.
And last minute they were like, "Jerry, we are so sorry, but the producers decided just to use stock music that they could just put into the movie." And I was like, what? Like, even taking myself out of it, please don't do that to your movie.
Yeah, I play a lot of horror games, and I always point out, like, music in horror is, I feel like, legitimately more important than almost any other kind of movie, because it's just so important to the mood and, like, the tension and stuff like that that's really important in horror. And you going, yeah, we're going to use stock. It's like,
there are some games. No, totally. There are some games that I think are terrifying that wouldn't be without the music. I think the score to Little Nightmares 2 is phenomenal.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. I was saying, I streamed that a couple months ago or a couple weeks ago, whatever it was, and I'm like, this fucking music is amazing because that movie, that game doesn't have dialogue. So you're sitting there and it's all on visuals and the fucking audio, and you just go, man, you have some talented motherfuckers making this kind of stuff, and it makes that in horror that's so important. So important. And it's like I was messaging you about the Return of the Living Dead score last night, and you're like, yeah, this motherfucker didn't do anything in Hollywood for like 30 years after this. And I'm like,
He's done 3 things in his entire career musically, and it's like, what? Yeah. And like I always do this experiment, and everyone thinks I'm weird, especially my wife, is I'll go on a walk, the most boring walk to the corner store, like a walk that I just hate, and I'll try to play some music that'll turn it into like this terrifying experience. And like it shows, like I would listen to the score for Little Nightmares 2 or like the score for Hereditary, and it would turn this really like boring walk into something that like by the time I'm coming home, I'm almost running because I think someone's gonna kill me.
Yeah. I mean, it's you think about it, like you think of iconic movie scores, man. And you think of things that are like people all know who even aren't into like horror or whatever. And you think of stuff like Psycho, right? Like Psycho's score in the Friday the 13th, and like all this stuff that is like universal for like even people that don't know those movies, right? And it's like, damn, it's like this shit is so important, and it sets this mood because like, again, it's why Jaws is one of the most horrifying movies ever, because it's music, and the music sets up the tension because they couldn't show the shark because it was broken, and the music, and it just makes it so like you're afraid the whole fucking time because you don't know what the fuck is happening. And it's like,
well, Carpenter showed an early cut of Halloween to like studio people without the music, and they were like, dude, this is bullshit. I think music's so important, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it has to be. Music is like, it's, again, horror, like you can't do, you can't do super fucked up things for an hour and a half and then like go, oh, okay, here's your, and we're gonna play the Benny Hill theme music the whole time because
I'd watch
Benny
that
Hill
actually.
I mean, I would too. Benny Hill theme music can make anything better, but it doesn't necessarily mean it could make it more horrifying.
Can you imagine watching like Saw 3 with like the theme for Sanford and Sons in there?
I'm thinking of Terrifier and the clown in there, Art the Clown, just fucking sawing people in half with that kind of music.
Three's Company's theme.
or what is it? Moving on up. What is it? The Jeffersons.
Oh,
Moving
God.
on up.
Love that one. 30 minutes in, people are like, "What is going on?"
What is it? I mean, Jerry. This is why I love you, because we can sit there and bullshit about this stuff. Okay, we're gonna do 2 episodes here about Mike Flanagan shit, and because, dude, me and you were messaging back and forth. You finished Midnight Mass before me, and I'm just like, holy shit! I got to like, I just don't want to say, I don't know. We could talk real briefly about the show overall. But this show hinders, like, and I don't want to ruin it for anyone. This show hinders primarily on a kind of a twist. Like, they do a really good job of, like, keeping what's driving the show away from any of the, the clips and all that stuff. And I'm actually amazed. I've not seen much, like, of people ruining this show for others on Twitter and shit.
The only thing I've noticed people completely going off about is like everyone's come at each other for what they do or don't believe online. Like this show has inspired so many online fights about like whether or not you have faith or not, and I think that's kind of cool, to be honest. Not the fighting, but like for something to really inspire like good dialogue about like faith and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I think, man, if anything can like inspire debate, that's a big thing, man. It's like, it's not easy. It's not something you could do all the time. It means it invokes feelings from someone, and that means it's fucking art. Art is like, it gets those, like, those primordial feelings out of you, and whether it's like good, bad, or in like, that doesn't matter. It just, if it invokes it out of you, that means it's done something, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you think of like that fucking artist who like pissed in a jar and called it an art piece, and people were pissed off about it, and you're like, hey, that motherfucker did what he meant to do. He got people pissed off about a piece of art. Right?
Totally.
Like
Actually, speaking of that art, would you mind if I go make that art really quick before we start?
Go ahead, man. I'll go intro. I'm gonna talk about the intro of it while you go do that.
Yeah.
I'm gonna read the premise, and we're not gonna spoil anything yet. We're gonna go over it a little bit, but. Okay, so Midnight Mass, TV miniseries. It's on Netflix, obviously. It reads, an isolated island community experiences miraculous events and frightening omens after the arrival of a charismatic, mysterious young priest. So this is Mike Flanagan, who directed The Haunting of Bly Manor and The Haunting of Hill House, which are both incredibly cool, like just very haunting pieces of television. They're both really, really incredible. They're not, man, it's funny because I watched both of them with my wife, as I watched this one with my wife, and they are haunting, both of them. I was kind of going, Jerry, I was kind of going over, I read the exposition and talking about Bly Manor and Hill House, and how haunting all of Mike's stuff is, like, with this kind of television show stuff. I meant to look it up, but I completely forgot. So Mike had this idea in his head for a while, right? Like, he had the Midnight Mass in his head because it is referenced in Hush.
It's referenced in Hush, and it's also referenced in Gerald's Game.
Yes.
Yeah, no, like he wanted to pitch, if I remember correctly, he pitched this as a series back in, like, I think 2014 or 15.
Yeah.
And he just didn't have that clout yet,
Yeah. And that's what you go back, and so it's his wife, Kate Siegel, plays what's her name on the show? It is, I'm thinking it's Erin Green. She's the main character of Hush and plays the writer of Midnight Mass, which is a cool little universal. It really reminds me kind of what Stephen King does, like how he builds his universes, right? Where he does, like, he's talking about all this stuff, and like, but he's connecting it with. I still have never done the Dark Tower stuff, and after I heard the movie wasn't good, I haven't like ventured into the Dark Tower movie. Even though I think I have it on Blu-ray somewhere around here.
I'm the same way. Like, I own it, but I'm such a fan of the book series of that I am scared to watch the movie.
Yeah. How do you mess up Idris Elba and Matthew McConaughey? How do you mess it up so badly? I don't know, but it's supposedly not very
I
good.
love how Stephen King is always very nice to the people who do his movies, even if he knows their shit. Like, I remember he was just like, yeah, it's pretty interesting what they're doing with the Dark Tower.
Dude, it's the problem, right, man? It's like they had these really cool, like, overarching, like, storylines that they were gonna do with the show. Like, they were talking about doing like an Amazon show or something like that to connect them and kind of do all this stuff. And it's like, yeah, but then you fuck up the first movie that badly, and never gonna fucking happen. And it's, man, I'm kind of glad though that Flanagan had to wait to do this movie or this show, because man, I feel like he learned a lot doing the stuff he did in between. Because what year did he do the Ouija? What the fuck is that mirror movie called? He did
Oculus.
Oculus, was that, what year was that? I'm not even sure.
Oculus was 2013.
Yeah, so it's right around that time. But man, Oculus is another thing, man. Mike Flanagan isn't like, you learn about him very quickly. Happy endings are not something he's a huge fan.
And he hates hands so fucking much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, there's so much hand trauma in every one of his like projects. Like, have you seen Gerald's Game?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Dude, I'm not squeamish or anything, but my wife and I watched it when it first came out. I got up and puked immediately when the degloving scene happened.
It's just like, it's one of the hardest to watch things, and like, I'm like,
the really, sliding glass door on Hush. Oh my god.
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit, man. But holy fuck, yeah, he fucks up hands real bad. Yeah, her hand. It's like her hand at the end of that movie looked like. You ever watch like big like offensive linemen from the NFL who like are doing like broadcasting stuff now, and like one of their fingers is like going the opposite direction it's supposed to be because it got fucked up in a helmet and they never got it really fixed. I think it's some kind of like I'm a badass kind of thing. It's like, damn.
Mike Flanagan hates hands almost as much as Tarantino loves feet.
Loves feet. Yeah. As soon as you said that, I was like, he's gonna go Tarantino. Yeah. It's, man. It's hands are, you can go worse though. Like, you're doing eyeball shit. Eyeball shit fucks with me way more. But that degloving scene in Gerald's Game, man, that movie, like, it just shows how, I mean, this man can do so much with so little. He takes these little tiny sets and like this, it's a little tiny island, and he tells this fabulous story. Hush tells all of this with a house and like the little area around it. Fucking Gerald's Game, it's mostly with a room. He does all this stuff with so little, and you're just like, damn.
That, and he's one of the only few people that 100% understands what makes Stephen King's work so well. Because there's all these adaptations, like we were talking about Dark Tower, or a lot of people hated the new Stand. But like Mike Flanagan has done like, I think 3 or 4 Stephen King projects now, and what's cool is he was going to do Revival by Stephen King, and he was in pre-production, and he left that to do Midnight Mass. But like he understands, I think, characters more than a lot of people. A lot of other Stephen King based things, like they focus more on the plot and not enough on the characters, which makes Stephen King's books really good. And Mike Flanagan, even in his non-Stephen King stuff, like, you care for the characters, especially in this one, I think.
And his endings aren't terrible most of the time. I love Stephen King, man. Stephen King was a thing where you're like, oh, this guy. But it starts going, how do you get the way you do into the endings of your books, man? I will. That was my
favorite that was my favorite bit in It Chapter 2.
It's like where he's shitting on the ending.
Yeah.
because man, that movie falls off too at the end. It's like you have this big old mythical creature from time that you call it bad names, and it's like, really, Steven? Really? Yeah, man. So, but yeah, the character work in this is so fucking good, and it like you have all this, and there are characters you fucking hate the entire time, just fucking despise. There are characters that you're just like, you understand that it's like these flawed human beings, and that's what I think is so good, is the writing of flawed human beings, because no one's perfect, man, and you're like, you can't do 80s like, not every man in the world is Commando Arnold Schwarzenegger, like the perfect like badass motherfucker who doesn't take shit from anyone. That doesn't happen, man. And he writes these characters, and like this series is like, it's weird, man. Like he does this, and really like this whole thing, it's 7 episodes, and they're all like an hour or to like an hour and 8 minutes. It's like, it really like, they're all kind of like movies, you know what I mean? Like movie length, really. And he does such a good job of telling stories, and he just sits there and he goes, like, my friend was watching this, and she goes the other day, she goes, I stayed up way late watching this, and it was funny because I don't know how much more she's watched, but she's like, why do people keep telling me, like, she hates religion, and she goes, why are people telling me to watch this? And we're like, oh, I think she stopped at episode 3, and so she didn't get to the and I think she's watched it more since then, but man, I can't explain how, like, we'll get into it, we're spoiling it, but like this show shows you what it reminds me a lot of, like, it kind of reminds me a lot of what the fanatical people with Trump, it really does, like, it's that people who will justify doing whatever they want. It's like the means justifying the ends to these people.
It's broken, impressionable people just striving to believe in something, and when they find that, no matter what it is, they'll do, like you said, the worst things. And like, even like what you were saying a second ago, like not everyone's just kind of like Rambo kind of thing. I've met more people that are like Joe, the town drunk, than Rambo. You know what I mean? Like, there are characters that, like, you see these people and you're like, I know that person. Or in a lot of ways, I am that person. You know what I mean? Like, no, the characters are great.
It's the scenes, the AA scenes in this show are just the real, like, the living moments in this show are just so fucking good. The AA scenes and the scene with Kate and Riley sitting on her couch are just so fucking memorable, because the dialogue is so good and it's so profound, and the Aaron speech at the end of the last episode is just like, it will make you cry, man, just because it's that thing where it's just so pure and so, like, we don't know, but where I'm, again, not spoiling any of this stuff, but it makes you think, and it makes you feel, and it makes you go, fuck, it's that thing where it's the universal question. It's like, it's always the question, why are we here, right? And this show it gives so much about, like, what the benefits of having faith are, but like the same time, what the trappings of it are, what can having faith can really do, because faith can be blinders, man, and that's really what a lot of this premise of this show is that the premise of, like, having faith means, I don't know what comedian said this, but there's a comedian who did a speech back in the day about the difference between faith and beliefs, basically, or ideas, and like how, like, when you have ideas, like, it doesn't mean you're, like, so fanatical about things, and you're so, like, strong-willed, and you're so, like, you just think, you think things, right? But then you go into beliefs and, like, this kind of stuff, and how if you know things, you know that what it will do and what you will do to prove those points and what you will do to, and it's just, that's what this show explores so well.
No, totally. And I tweeted something I think last night about how when I grew up, I grew up in a very Baptist and then later Pentecostal upbringing, you know, like slain in the spirit, speaking in tongues, people healed at revivals kind of stuff. But I was also told that I would burn in hell if I didn't throw Nightmare the board game into a bonfire. I was told, oh, you liked Marilyn Manson? Parents, buy that shit off of your kids or they're going to hell. You know, like I hated being alive because of what a lot of people think is a great thing with faith, until where I got to like 18, 19, and I became a passionate atheist, almost to extreme, like you have the fanatical Christians, but then I became like, no, I hate religion and I'm going to fucking talk shit to you if you believe. And I think what Flanagan does so well is shows that like people could have faith, like genuine faith, but not rely on church, not rely on this dogma of, you know what I mean? Like I've met some of the nicest Christian people or some of the nicest people with faith that didn't shove it down my throat at all. But I've also met some of the most prickish atheists around.
Yep. Dude, I have a friend who I used to work with who I haven't seen in a couple years now, but he's a super Mormon, man. And like, dude, I don't know how many Mormons you've ever encountered. These motherfuckers are all the sweetest people in the fucking world. Like, I would mess with this guy and give him like shit about Mormon shit, and he knew I was messing with him, and he would like come in and give me a Mormon fact of the day, and just be like all this stuff. And like, I went to a Mormon service with him one Sunday, him and his family, and just because he was such a good dude, and I was just like, yeah, I'll come. Like, I wasn't ever going into like, you know, to like invest in this or whatnot, but like. Like our friendship had met enough to me, and like we had enough conversations and we had enough things that I was like, yeah, I'll go in and like observe a fucking, you know, like a service with you. Like, I'm not sitting here and like, you know, there's no one's like gonna hold. Dude, I feel like it's funny. My wife and I a couple of years ago went to Mexico and Cancun, and we went on to one of the timeshare things, and those motherfuckers are like religious zealots, right? They're like trying to sell you timeshare. It's the same kind of thing. It'd be like, okay, we're not interested, and you would go into the next room, and it would be 8 more people trying to sell you the timeshare.
Dude, I went to those once, and the dude was so on it as far as being so welcoming and stuff, and he's like, and don't worry about it. After I'm done, if you don't want to do it, we're still giving you tickets to Disneyland and a hotel. Don't even worry about it. It's not a big deal. And at the end he goes, okay, so what do you think? And I go, you know, to be honest, I don't think I'm interested. And he's like, okay, here's your tickets. And basically just shoved me the fuck out.
Dude, that's awesome. Way better than this shit that happened. But yeah, it's amazing how much, because like one of the characters on the show, Riley, is like, I feel like Riley is the most, you talked about it, what's his name? Joe. The other guy is pretty, like, you know, he's there with it, but Riley is kind of your like gateway into this world, and a flawed character who, man, those fucking flashbacks that dude comes through with are fucking nightmarish, by the way. Like, so we won't, this isn't like, we're not spoiling yet, but the main thing that drives his character, because this happens at the very beginning of the first episode, the man kills a young girl while drunk driving. And it's this thing that sends him back to this island he grew up on, and to live back with his parents after going to jail for 4 years. And it's a thing that drives him because he's haunted by his actions. He's haunted by what he did. He's haunted by about the person who he was. And it's funny because who this man is and what his lack of beliefs, because he goes in and he talks about what he did while he was in prison, kind of drives him to be the most pure character on the entire show. Like his beliefs and his lack of faith are what make him the most relatable / like believable character here, because they drive him to be the best person, right?
Dude, I was thinking about just that recently. And it also speaks on just Mike Flanagan in general. I don't know too much of his story, but I know that he got sober a few years ago, and that became a huge driving part. Like, you see so much of Mike Flanagan in every film he makes, whether it's Doctor Sleep or this or any other ones. I think a big part of the show is forgiveness, not only to like characters, but also to yourself. You know, like
to yourself.
You look back at these really dark points of your life and it's like, man, I was not a good person, and you strive to be as good as possible. And even the idea of faith, like some people think that it's pro faith, some people think it's anti faith, but I think it's an example of saying this really like toxic area of it can harm people, but there's also this kind of like freeing moment of, you know, do you not believe because of how shitty you were treated for believing, you know, or can you find some kind of faith within yourself, you know, that doesn't fall in line with, okay, I need to go on Sundays and Wednesdays and Friday nights for youth group. And, you know, like when I was deeply into church, like, dude, I went probably 6 or 7 times a week. Like, it was Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night after for youth group, Friday night for youth group with the Christian skaters. Like,
it's, dude, I grew up Catholic, and it was, the thing, like, I point to my anxiety as an adult, and a lot of that has to do with like ADHD that did get diagnosed for a really long time. But like, a lot of it is like that thing is where you're told repeatedly over and over and over again, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. Just like you were talking about, if you don't do this, you're going to hell. I had a friend who was super religious, and you talk about Marilyn Manson. I had the fucking the Beautiful People CD when I was in like middle school, and this motherfucker like broke my Marilyn Manson CD in half because he said I was going to hell if I listened to Marilyn Manson. And I'm sitting here going, like, all that stuff is like, it creates this really fucked up like belief of where you, like, how telling everyone that everything they do is wrong and that the only way they can, you know, redeem themselves is through God is it's like playing Jenga where you're like removing the base blocks because you're like removing the basis of what you stand on as a human being. You're going, you can't do this by yourself. It has to be Jesus. It has to be God. It has to be, you can't do this. You can't, everything mistake you make, you're going to hell. And like,
that's impossible. That's impossible to live up to.
Yeah.
You know, and like what's really weird is, even though I don't believe in that stuff per se, like, you know, I've been obsessed with it my entire life. Like, I read a lot of books on that stuff, and like the overall message of the Bible is one word: love. But like especially conservative Christians these days, they are the most hateful motherfuckers ever.
Oh yeah,
ever. Yeah. I've met so many people like Miss Carmody in The Mist. Like that's dude. Yeah.
And that's fucking Samantha Sloyans. I don't even know what to say her name. She plays Bev Keane in the show.
Oh Lord!
And is the biggest cunt. And that's what I compared her to. You is her from The Mist. And you sit and go, these are the ones. And dude, it's all the hatred I see on a regular basis in this country. The just pure hatred so often comes from places and groups that are fucking like supposed to be religious. They're supposed to be like, and dude, you know, like, so my friend, the same one who was talking about like that I was talking about before, she's a streamer. She did a thing where every Sunday she was reading there was like some guide to the Bible, and they would be like, read the Bible every Sunday. And it was just to understand it, because like people are sitting there, there's some insane shit in the fucking like Bible. Insane. The Bible talks about horse cum. If you don't know it, the Bible talks about horse cum, and just like crazy shit like that. And you're just like, why? Like, it's fucked up, because it's like you go out and you learn things like in the Middle Ages, like fucking the Bible didn't ever used to have anything about gay people in it, and the Bible used to be like all these places that were fucking anti-gay people. Was like anti-pedophilia, and they changed it in the fucking medieval times because They wanted to go fuck themselves some little boys.
How much of the Bible is from Jesus? 90% of it is like first-hand accounts from other dudes. So they're basically playing a game of telephone, and then like people are supposed to live according to that.
And it was written how long after Jesus died?
If Jesus is a magical David Blaine motherfucker, it changes water into wine, then the people recounting these stories were drunk as fuck anyways, and I don't trust anyone like that. I'm not gonna go to Joe fucking Colley and ask him the meaning of life.
You ever think about that? These motherfuckers were drinking a whole lot of wine.
These guys were like, the disciples were blackout drunk 24/7. Yeah. And like there are people that will kill people if they don't follow what these drunkards are writing down. Yeah. They probably didn't see ghosts or talked in tongues. They were just slurring their fucking speech, man.
Fuck, I'm over here. It's just so, you know what? I this is how I say it, and I explain it over and over and over again, man. I feel like if you're spreading love and not hate, and you're letting people live their lives, you're letting people love who they want to love, and you want to be like, then what kind of world is we gonna have? One that isn't like telling people what to do and telling people how to live and telling people that the way the person they love is wrong, or what, like. I mean, it's the thing where like it's all the fucking Christian states like Florida now. They're doing shit that like we're gonna check the genitals of high school athletes if we don't think they're the right sex.
What's funny is like Florida State's like super Christian, but those are also the motherfuckers that are biting each other's faces off on bath salts. Like Florida is James Franco and Spring Breakers 24/7, and these are the people that like tell us about God.
It's so funny because I was the other day on my stream, I was talking about Florida, and we were I have a bunch of people on my stream from like Europe, and it's like I'm explaining American things, and like I was telling them about hamburgers with donuts as the buns, and they're like, what the fuck is wrong with you people? And we're doing I was doing like all the invasive species in Florida that like of animals that people didn't have any idea. It was just bonkers, and people were like, what is wrong with America? Well, there's a lot of crazy shit, man. Like, you think about it, you look at how America got going, and you go, so there was these people that go, I want to be more crazy religious, and you won't let me, so fuck you guys, I'm out of here. And which makes you go and watch The Witch, and you go, how crazy were these motherfuckers into God? Because if you've never seen The Witch, the whole concept is they're so crazy religious that they're fucking like crazy religious settlements. Like, you guys are a little too extreme. You could get the fuck out of here, and they get kicked out of a settlement. You think about that. These are the crazy motherfuckers that like. Yeah, it's bonkers, and America's like. And there's so much good about America, and I don't ever want it to be like, but this show just shows what in a belief without understanding or a belief without questioning can do, and what it can do. And they use some cool stuff. They use horror elements in the show to kind of really bring home these points. But man, it's Mike doing what he does, where he tells this story with these human characters and have these flaws, and he does some really bonkers off the wall stuff in the show, but the story is told so well. The dialogue's what
he does
written so well.
He does three things perfectly. I think he writes good characters, he fucks up hands, and he gives Elliot from E.T. a consistent job.
Yep. Yeah. I always love when directors have that, like they work with someone, or they do, because it shows you that they're loyal. It's why, like, you look at like James Gunn. James Gunn works with the same motherfuckers constantly, right? Because he's like all like his brother and all these other like, and what's his name, Mary Poppins, like that guy.
Even Rob Zombie. Rob Zombie has been in every James Gunn movie. His voice has.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, he's the voice of God in Super. He's the doctor on the phone in Slither, He's one of the oh god, what is it? Yondu's crew in Guardians.
Yeah.
What are they called? Ravagers or something something like that.
Yeah, Ravagers. Yep.
Like he's a voice of one of those. I love when people do that. Like people talk trash about Martin Scorsese, like using De Niro way too much back in the day, or using like DiCaprio too much these days. But if you know that, hey, this friend of mine's gonna kick ass every time. That's the thing with like Rob Zombie and his wife. People talk trash about that. But two things. Like one, like she isn't the worst part of his worst movies, and two, and two, like, dude, what the fuck? Like, if I had enough clout to make movies and put my wife in everything, I would do it in a fucking heartbeat.
And there's way worse examples of that. Look at Paul W.S. Anderson and him and his wife, who I like, Jolovich. She's good, but like, it's just like she's like. He just puts her in movies without even developing her characters half the time. Like, if you saw her in Monster Hunter, which was... it was not a very good movie. Like, I had fun with some of it, right? Like, one, how do you have Tony Jaa in a movie and not have him, like, tie kickboxing motherfuckers to death? But, man, like, she plays the same character in every single movie, right? It's just, like, generic badass lady, right? Mm-hmm. And then you look at, because it's you talk about it because you talk about like Zombie's the only one who ever gets shit for that, because Anderson does that, and so does the one married to Kate Beckinsale. She's like in all her husband's movies too.
That's probably why they got divorced, I think. She probably just got tired of being in every fucking Underworld movie. She's like, listen, dude, I'm out. I'm gonna go hook up with Pete Davidson. How do you go from that guy, the director of the Underworld movies, to date Pete Davidson?
I don't know how. I think Pete the running rumor in the on the streets is that Pete Davidson has a hell of a hog. So I mean, it makes sense. I mean, because that's the only way you could fuck that dude. Look at him. Him in that commercial where he's getting tattoos removed is like, he's got that fucking like Tupac tattoo on his stomach, and I'm just like,
he looks like if John Cryer got into Wu-Tang. You know what I mean? Like, or like John Cryer was like a really big fan of like the Master P era of like compact disc.
Oh my God! Yes. And he's like, the funny part is that kid, Pete Davis, is like, I think he might be 30, and yet he's got tattoos from like you're talking about like the Wu-Tang Clan from the early 90s. It's like, what the fuck, man? Yeah, he's got to have a giant dong. That's the only way that really, because I think then after he fucked her, he fucked someone else, and it was like, it's weird, man. You know how men get shit for being shallow with women? One beautiful woman like fucks a dude that looks like Pete Davidson, and Pete Davidson basically gets a free pass to fuck whoever he wants for the rest of his life. I mean, it's like women are like, Kate Beckinsale fucked him? Oh, I'm down. What?
Also, with this being the episode, I think it is noted, and dude, I love Mike Flanagan with like a passion. Yep. The dude is so cool. But like, do you know what I mean? I think we talked about that like before. Like, as far as like his wife and him, like Mike Flanagan isn't like traditionally, a leading man kind of handsome person.
No. And
it
kind of has. He kind of looks like Joss Whedon. He's kind of like a skinnier Joss Whedon. He's got a balding, middle-aged, average white dude looks going on him. And you were like, gives hopes for you guys like you and me. Like, it's His Kate Siegel is a very pretty lady, and she even pulls off being pregnant for the show. And you go, man, when pregnant women have that glow, right? And like it's. She obviously wasn't really pregnant when she was doing this, but like, she pulls off the look really well. So, so it's that same thing we're talking about with like marrying someone and having them in all years. But she's good, man. Like, but she hasn't been in everything he did, because she wasn't in Oculus, right? It was just No,
yeah, she was in. Let me see. She was in Oculus, Hush. Ouija 2, okay. Gerald's Game, Haunting of Hill House, Haunting of Bly Manor, and this one.
What was she in? There wasn't much else in Gerald's Game. That was mostly.
I think it was the friend. There was like one or two scenes. Yeah.
Yeah. All I know is that when Samantha Sloyan got killed on Hush, I was like, yes, because she's such a cunt on the show. I hate her. Yeah. It's funny, man, because I was telling you, we talk about her character, Bev Keane, on Midnight Mass, and you compare it back to the chick on Mist. My wife refuses to watch The Mist ever again because she fucking hates that character so badly, right? So, okay, yeah, let's wrap up not spoiling the show. Dude, if we haven't sold you, this show is really, really fun, and not fun. It's really, really well done. I wouldn't calling the show fun might get some people angry at me because it's not fun for most of it. It's real intense. It's real. It's beautiful at times. It's ugly at times. It's violent at times. It does one thing that I'm not a huge fan of, but like you kind of understand why. It kills some kitties. This movie has a kitty death count.
Yeah,
more than anything
right from the get-go.
Yeah, you're like that was the end of like the beginning of episode 2 or 3 or something. It's pretty early on. You're like, there's a large kitty death count, and it's not like you don't see it on screen. Thank God. You see like one of them, but yeah, they're like cat snack packs, so you grab one and go.
It's like the cat. It's the feline Lunchable.
Yeah, basically, yeah, that's what it is. It's like you just can't eat one, just one. So go watch this, and we're gonna spoil stuff in this. This show is not meant to be. You don't want this spoiled for you. It's like 7 episodes at like an hour apiece, so it will take a good part of a day to watch. But man, it's completely worth the journey. Just be wary. I bet you would agree with this, Jerry. Be careful about watching the last episode, especially before going to bed. This shit gets real heavy.
Yeah.
And you're someone who thinks about this stuff, like this show has a lot to think about. I went to bed after watching the last episode. Probably not the best of ideas. Your brain will go to some dark, weird places after this. So go watch it though. It's so good.
And such a visually striking one too. Like the cinematography is just gorgeous. Even like the darker stuff.
Yeah, he does man, he knows how to shoot. Like I don't know if he uses the same cinematographer or a lot of it is just him being him, but man, the guy really does like I know I've compared it before, like it really has a very Quentin Tarantino vibe because of how he writes these monologue scenes that are just monologues for like extended minutes at a time that are just so well done that if it's not that, it's the dialogue between two characters that's so well done. And he's just like, dialogue I feel like is so hard to make perfect, and Flanagan's dialogue is just so close to perfect that it's just like chef's kiss, right?
You know what's odd is I've read so much hate on that. Like it was just a bunch of monologues. And dude, I could not be more stoked when like a film or a show does that stuff. You know, as a writer myself, anything that I've directed, like short films and stuff, I've always gotten a lot of shit because most of it is just talking. And people are like, make something happen. But I think you could get so much across in good dialogue as far as storytelling, and you get really good character studies with talking and good dialogue that like sometimes that makes the plot even better.
Dude, that's all Quentin Tarantino ever does. Yep. Quentin Tarantino movies are 70% dialogue. Like, and you go back to like even like his least dialogue movie ever is probably Kill Bill, the first one, right? Mm-hmm. But like you go into the second one, dialogue. All his movies are dialogue, and they have action sprinkles in
my
them.
Favorite Tarantino movie is The Hateful Eight, which I know isn't like the most popular one, but like I love the fact that you're watching basically a 2.5 hour play. It feels like, like it's just cool.
Yeah, dialogue is harder to do than almost anything else in movies, because it's just to keep that attention of ADHD America or wherever else is watching it. And Flanagan just does such a good job of it. The Preacher's dialogue and Riley's dialogue and fucking Aaron's dialogue, all this stuff is so good. And even like in Joe's dialogue, you're talking about the drunk Joe, his dialogue is so like, it's just a broken soul. And there's an event like that happens like at the town celebration with him that you just like, this man just breaks down. You're just like, fuck. And you just, the feelings, man. And just, yeah, it's
that. And like for every fucking, God, I don't know why her name's escaping me. For every Bev, there's really conflicted characters that aren't necessarily good or evil, but they're like flawed characters that you could kind of see like the humanity in, you know, you know, like these are people that I don't want to follow a story about a dude that's perfect because I'm not perfect. I'm fucked up, and you know sometimes I'm a raging piece of shit, and sometimes I'm a really overly sensitive, you know, emo kid. You know, like I like the fact that he has such a knack for giving like these really broken characters and having you sympathize with them. Even some of the villains, you know.
Yeah, I mean it's Bev. I hate her, but like the character is completely believable. She's believable as a character because we've talked about it. We had these religious like upraisings and surroundings in these kind of people who the fucking Bible isn't like a suggestion of how to live a better life. It's a fucking word for word written by God, and every fucking thing in this book is if you don't follow this, you're going to hell for all eternity. And that's the kind of character she is, and she's believable, and she's well written, and she's just like you want to fucking punch her in the throat for most of the series, but you're like, yeah.
You want to put her in the middle of like a pit at a terror show, you know?
Yeah. You want to be like, let's have 500-pound like a hardcore mosh pit dude just like fucking throw elbows at this bitch. So yeah. So go watch it. Let's go spoil some of this because there's a lot of this stuff that I really, really do want to talk about. And obviously we're not going to talk about 7 episodes worth of everything, but there's like highlights that I are really well done. Just like the opening scene of Riley's character in this being on the side of the road. It opens up where he's already killed this girl. Mm-hmm. And it just breaks your heart instantaneously because he's like, she's gonna be okay, right? She's like this fucking broken man who, like, you learn later on, he doesn't even remember any of this. That's how fucking drunk he was. And like this girl is the guy starts performing CPR, and you're like, oh, there's like holes in this woman's head. This woman isn't okay. Mm-hmm. And you go, oh, this is starting heavy and not easy, right? And that girl he hits is this fucking reoccurring set piece for this whole thing because Riley has these fucking visions of her, and it's so haunting how they do it because they have her like appear before him. It reminds me a lot of the bended neck lady on Hill House, right? Mm-hmm. But the police or the ambulance lights coming like through the skull holes in her head, and it's just it's like a haunting image, right?
Yeah, it's impossible to get that out of your head once you see it. Like I think it's also like one of the best shots of anything he's done. Yeah, there's specific shots of movies and stuff that get lodged into your head, and one of them for me is the Texas Chainsaw remake when the hitchhiker shoots herself in the head, and then the camera goes outside of it. You know, like the one you're talking about, it's very similar to that, to where like it's kind of like burned into your head for a while.
Yeah, well, that's the kind of thing with like death and trauma like that. It's often very like, even in horror, it's not like lingered on, right? Mm-hmm. Like it's, I didn't finish it, but I was watching Till Death this morning. And I was messaging you about that with what do you call her, Megan Fox, mm-hmm. and the shot of her husband and early on, I don't want to ruin it, that is like shown more visually than most things I've seen, and you have to sit with the consequences of that, because we're not talking about that movie right now, so I don't want to ruin it, but that kind of thing, right? Like, and that's what this does. It's like that haunting scene of this dead girl staring at him, but with like he can see what he did, and the police lights coming through are just so, it's such a cool effect of like what this really means to this man, right? And why, like, it teleports 4 years in the future after that incident, after he went to jail, and you go, damn, this is, like, you think about it, man, like, if you killed someone drunk driving, like, I don't know what I would do. Like, that guilt would never, like, I would have a hard time leaving it, right? And that's kind of like a big thing with Riley's character on this whole show, is like him being able to forgive himself and let this go, and let, like,
well, it also, yeah, totally. It also speaks, I think, on the topics of faith. Like, people, when you think of that, you think of faith, but I think ultimately, I think it's more about forgiveness. Yeah, you know, and people always look to like Jesus and that kind of stuff, but I think, like, you know, your life is even worse if you can't forgive yourself. And I think that right from the bat, you get to know someone who, you know, according to us at the beginning, how would he ever forgive himself? You know, like, I wouldn't forgive myself for that. But like, it's such a good example of like this big journey of forgiving yourself.
Yeah, well, because by the end of his character arc, you're like, this man, you don't know if he's fully forgiven himself, but he sees that his character has been redeemed, right? Like, he's willing to do things that he probably wouldn't have been, like, he wouldn't have been able to do at the beginning of the film, like, before his car accident. He was a selfish asshole, is kind of what he sells himself as, right? And yeah, so he gets taken back to his home island, where it's a small fishing island that doesn't have, like, I think his mom says they have like less than 100 people that live on this island. And he's got nothing. And it's funny because this girl is Kate Siegel's character, Erin Green. She's kind of back on this island herself as someone who went out into the world, and she talks about how she was going to be something and whatever, and ends up in her mom's house, who she fucking hated, doing this. She's teaching the school just like her mom did, and is pregnant, and is this like this loop of like self-fulfilling prophecy, basically, right?
No, totally. Like people that spend their entire, and I was like this too. I spent my entire childhood saying, like, no, I'm going to get out from this. I'm not going to be anything having to do with my parents or anything like that. And then later on, you know, you kind of look in the mirror and you're like, oh shit. Yeah. And that's what a lot of it is. You know, she didn't want to be on this fucking stupid ass island.
Yeah. It's the character arcs of Riley and Aaron, where they're both like, when you leave the nest and you go out into the real world, if the real world, something goes wrong for you, there's not many places you could go. And these two end up back at home, back where they started, because there was nowhere else for them. Neither one of them, both of them have kind of been like forsaken by the rest of the real world, right? They like, Riley can't go anywhere because he doesn't have any credentials anymore because he's a criminal. I think he was a little like, I was like, I understand that you're not going to get hired by everyone, but like, you have a degree, you have all this stuff, you fucked up real bad. But Riley feels like a character that's kind of given up on life at that point, right? Like,
he's the kind of person that thinks that he's such shit that he can't do anything. But like you're saying, like, dude, you're not going to get a job for the government, but you could at least be a door greeter at Walmart. I mean, come on, dude.
Yeah. And like, he goes home and he goes home and lives with his parents, and his parents are, his dad kind of has disowned him, right? He doesn't even want to pick him up at the boat when he comes in. Like, it's only his mom. And
plus, like, dude, his dad gave a fucking alien a chance. Why can't he give him? Like, what the fuck? His dad gave the alien fucking Reese's Pieces. He can't, like, be chill with his son. No, but in all seriousness, though, like, the idea of doing something horrible and completely losing faith in your belief system, but also yourself, and coming back and seeing that basically that faith is kind of everywhere now. Like, it's a really difficult thing to kind of get used to for him.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because he goes in and he's like, his dad's like, you're going to go to church, right? And he's like, nah, I'm good, Dad. He's like, no, you motherfucker. You're going to church and you're not going to have communion because you don't have faith, which is, I don't know. It didn't really matter that much in the long run, but yeah, it's seeing that like kind of tough love of a father who, he loves his son still because of how he handles him later on, but like he's not very, he's like that old school father who doesn't like, probably had a hard time telling him he loved him and all that stuff. And
especially with like the accident, as a parent, you want to love your kid, but at the same time, if your kid does something as shitty as that, you're like, yeah, dude, like I love you technically,
but you kind of done fucked up.
Yeah,
And this kind of sets up a lot of the early, early storytelling. We have Rahul Kali, I think is how you say his name, Sheriff Hassan.
Oh, dude, I love him.
Dude, he's so fucking good. He played the cook on Bly Manor, and God, that thing, his story arc with the nanny or whatever her name was so fucking heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm.
It was so heartbreaking. It's that seeing two people that love each other and don't ever do anything about it, and it just, by the time they do, it's just too late, and it's just too like, it hurts so bad. Like it's funny, man. Like I feel like I bet you're like this too. Like as I've gotten older, they're like the life experiences that I've had that when they get translated into media just mean so much more, or they hurt so much more, or feel so much better. It's just like it's not stuff that I think you could appreciate as a younger person. You could appreciate it's beautiful, but like it's that stuff that just hits home because of what you've been through personally as a human, right?
I remember when Twin Peaks aired when I was a kid. Like I was that awkward 4th and 5th grader watching Twin Peaks, and I didn't get the whole like Ed and Norma like love story. Then I was just like, that's whatever, bring on the Lord Palmer mystery. But like when the 3rd season came out like a few years ago, and then that whole story between them finally played out, like it was heartbreaking. And it's this like two people that should be together, but for so many reasons can't be. And like also, it's a good example of that dude kind of having to kind of extinguish his own belief system based on the people around him.
Yeah,
that character.
Yeah, the sheriff, I mean, is a Muslim who had been. It's a very strong belief system for him, and he'd lost his wife, and he has a high school son, and he just wants to worship and be left alone, basically. And he had been part of the police force because of 9/11. Like he joined the police after 9/11 because he saw and he wanted to help and show what a good Muslim could do and like what he meant and how much he loved America. And it didn't. It like ends up backfiring in the long run because they give up. Like they end up like he ends up getting tailed and like being surveilled because he spoke up about how he got treated or something like that. And you go, fuck, man, it's just a thing where in that like that fucking hatred, that fucking suspicion that like it's like how Bev treats him in the last episode or the second those last couple episodes. You go, it's just that fucking hatred and that fucking shit that happened and like the shit that like the anti-Muslim crimes that happened after 9/11, just like the fucking people who are so fucking stupid they went out and started attacking Asian people because of fucking Trump and his like China virus and all that shit.
That happened. It wasn't an attack, but my wife and I were out and about earlier today, and our daughter told us that her teacher at school said that COVID was 100% because of China and Chinese people brought it. At my fucking daughter's school, they're basically teaching the kids to be fucking racist.
I hate it so much. I hate it so much.
Like that, or like my other daughter, because our kids go to different schools based on their other parents. My other daughter, like I got an email from their principal basically saying that kids have been talking about relationships other than straight relationships, and they can't. They don't want that in their school. And I was like, what the hell?
It just fucking it's. This is the kind of stuff, man, where I saw something interesting yesterday, I think, online, and it was these people had like raised their small. The video was set up as they didn't assign a sex for their kid at birth, and they used they them and all that stuff, and let their child choose that, like when, and they taught them and they let them do all this stuff, and when the child was 4, it was the child decided wanted to be he, and I was like, I had to think about it for a little bit, and I'm like, man, that is so kind of cool. It's kind of really like this weird, like it's like a weird concept when you first think about it because of how ingrained gender is in our, like, you know, world, and I think that's something that's kind of changing. But that was like something I was like, man, it just like letting a kid pick instead of like doing that, because all the transgender friends I have that you see what being told what you are all your life and how it affected them and how it, like, how traumatized they are by that stuff. You just go, fuck, man, it's you know, so much of a culture and how it was before and how things have changed. It's just it's an interesting concept because it goes, that just helps some people not like be hurt by that kind of stuff. Now it's just like, damn, man, you know what I mean? It's like just establishing.
What's like, dude, like I never pretend to know the struggles of people that aren't me, but dude, I am a straight white dude. You know what I mean? Yep. That said, I've had body dysmorphia my entire life. If you know, I either think I'm too big or too small. You know, I've had an eating disorder. I hated being alive as a kid because of faith, because of, you know, being a nerd. Everyone calling me names. And if I had dealt with that to the point where I wanted to die most of my childhood, I can't even begin to think of the horror that other, like, the actual marginalized groups have.
Yeah. It's just like you said, they go, it's something that it doesn't, you can't understand it because you can be understanding of it. You could try to, you know, be there and whatever, but yeah, it's being white dudes is you go, it's very hard for us like to go completely understand, but I think it's always something that if you listen and try to show compassion and be there for those people and try to stop the, you know, the things that go against them, then that's all you can really truly do, right? And try to change perspectives and try to change prejudices and all that stuff, right? It's kind of, I think it's all you could really truly do, but at least it's doing something, right?
Yeah, totally.
It's one of those things in the Sheriff Hassan's character and all that stuff he goes through, like with the anti-Muslim stuff, it's one of those things that it's such a good story arc. And it's funny because it's not even like, it kind of takes a lot of the story arc at the very ending of the show, right? Because when the big reveal of the Jonestown scene in this show is fucking horrifying. Did you ever see the Vice movie they made about like the fake Jonestown?
Sacrament?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, dude, my good buddy, actually, AJ, he starred in that. And, dude, I went to the Fantastic Fest premiere of that movie in 2013, and this is how fucking weird it was. I knew that the movie was kind of loosely kind of being that because, you know, AJ told me kind of like when he was filming it, like, hey, this is fucking nuts. And so I went to the premiere of that, and at Fantastic Fest, they gave us all little cups of Kool-Aid. And I watched that fucking movie, and I was in the lobby just speechless. And he came up to me and goes, dude, so what do you think of the movie? And I go, I loved it, but I think I need to go call my kids right now. I showed it to my wife a couple months ago, and that is one of the only movies that she refuses to watch again. Because it's that blind faith. It's that blind faith to the point where, like, you would take your own life just to prove that you believe in something.
Yeah, that's I bring that up because that there was it the sixth episode?
Mm-hmm.
I think it was the sixth episode where they turn into the they realize everyone is. You know what's funny? They never use the word vampire this entire show.
Nope.
They just say angels, which is such a brilliant thing by Flanagan. It's just a brilliant fucking way to do what they did with this show and go, oh, we're gonna just keep using the word angel because the vampirism isn't. It's just a means to an end, right? It's it's really just a way to go. Yeah, you motherfuckers who have faith will do anything and go down any routes to prove that. And it's funny because the pastor is the never ending the kind of guiding stone of this, and he's the one that like. Not everyone really realizes it. I mean, most of the people do by the end, but the pastor is the one who at the very end he goes, "Man, we done fucked up," right? He goes, "Oh shit," because. Or we'll go back to him then, I guess. So at the beginning of the show, there was a town preacher who'd been around forever, and they paid to have him go to Jerusalem to be like, because this motherfucker was about to die. He was like 1 billion years old. But when he got there, he kind of wandered off because he was a little senile. And
he's my dad looking for his donut.
He didn't find a donut though, Jerry. He found something very much worse. He wanders off, and instead of a donut, he finds an ancient fucking vampire. It actually kind of reminded me of the latest What We Do in the Shadows, where the sire on What We Do in the Shadows. Have you seen the new episode yet?
Dude, I have not seen the show at all. I love the movie though.
It's so good. They're so good. So the sire on that is very much like the ancient vampire, the whatever on this show. Dude, watch it. You will fucking laugh your balls off. The show's so good. It's so funny. Colin Robinson for life. I love him. So that was one of those gifts I sent you the other day. But so he found this cave like because he got wandered off in a sandstorm, and finds this old like village, like this old like ruins, and there's a vampire in there, and he thinks it's a fucking angel, because of the wings, and it's a very gargoyle-ish vampire. It's very.
Did you see Dracula Untold?
I think so. Yeah, like the one with is that the one with what do you call him? Who the fuck was in that?
Luke. I think Luke Evans. I think it was.
Oh, okay. I didn't see that one. No, I didn't see that
one. It's very similar design-wise to what you're talking about. Yeah,
it's very like. It's very gargoyle. I mean, like gargoyle, like is like very like. I always enjoy like when like the different vampire mythos, but it's very like you don't really ever know, but it kind of seems like this thing is so old and has been like draining people of blood for so long that it kind of got like looking like this, right? The only thing I didn't like with the vampire mythos in this, they did the whole like the very end, the girl who had been who was in a wheelchair who had been shot by the drunk. When she goes, I can't feel my legs again, I kind of didn't like that. That was the only thing about the whole mythos they did at the very end. I didn't like that. I felt like it was, I don't know. I never liked because this story felt very grounded for a vampire story outside of like you know, that the whole connection to a host kind of seems very like. Yeah, it's very mythical, kind of, right?
Yeah,
you know
I know exactly what you're talking about. It added an element that you're like I know what you're talking about as far as like the host thing. I think the connection, like once that connection severed, you know, like I didn't like that. Yeah, I know. So I agree.
It just that it felt like Flanagan didn't. He was like, okay, I'm letting you two characters survive. That's all you get. You don't even get the little girl can't like walk anymore.
He's like, you're depressed, but I'm gonna give you a silver lining. But even that silver lining's pretty fucking downer.
Yeah, like because that kid, the brother, Riley's brother, like was like finally gets to like tell the like go with this girl because he's into her, and then she gets to walk for like a couple days. Like I don't know, it's not very long. It was like a couple weeks or whatever it is. But yeah, so the vampire eats the priest, and basically when he wakes up, he drinks the blood of the vampire. The vampire feeds him the blood. He's like 30 again. Like I think, did they say like back to your best self, right? Like, or your present self.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically he comes back to, he doesn't, I don't think he actually died, right? He didn't die because he dies later on.
Yeah.
But like the blood of this thing was so pure that it resurrects him back to like his primal self. Like, and this guy had been in his late 80s, it seemed like. And
he's pretty dapper young.
Oh yeah, and dude, this guy gives these sermons, and they're like, a lot of them are real bonkers, but like he has them with so much energy and so much like. Especially the fucking the speech he gives the night that Riley goes out, where he's like about being the soldiers of God and stuff like that. So it's like it feels very much like evangelical like TV preachers were like
the dudes would like punch through the air and someone would fly back and pass out.
Yeah, or like they're like, you will give me all your money, and I will fly in the golden Jesus jet of joy. It's just like that kind of speech. So he brings this thing back with him though when he comes back to the island, and he doesn't tell anyone because obviously he's not going to believe him. But this is when he does the fucked up thing where he starts putting that vampire's blood because he thinks it's an angel. And he puts it in the town communion, and this is where the girl who can't walk starts being able to walk. Where my wife, I kind of called it pretty early on. I was like, my wife's like, why are all these people wearing shitty, horrible like old age makeup? I was like, because they're all gonna get de-aged, and they did. Some of them were like the worst one was obviously the doctor's mom, who was supposed to be like, like 100 years old, and she had been in love with. You find in the last episode, she had been in love with the preacher, and they had her together. And it's so, man, it's another thing. It's like that thing where it's like these people are preaching one thing, and then they're all fucking and making this baby, and you're just going,
isn't that how it is though? I've learned that like. That's why all these scandals that you always come across, like this anti-gay preacher is banging some dude in a rest stop.
Oh yeah, he got caught at the airport with like a dick in his mouth and a glory hole, and you're just like, Jesus! It's always it's the fucking hypocrisy of it. It's the hypocrisy of it that drives me so insane. It's this fucking say as I do, say as I say, do as I say, not as I do. And it's like, because it's the thing that it's like the Bev character in this whole thing. Bev is like, I don't know if they ever say like, she's like kind of like an assistant for the church, right? But she's also a teacher. And this bitch, you learn early on, is out there. She kills Joe's dog because she doesn't like it. She poisons it, and it's one of the most heartbreaking scenes I've ever seen, because it's sitting there and you're like, this dude has like, he's an old drunk who shot this girl on accident because he was drunk, and just he goes and gets trashed every night because he could barely live with himself. And the only thing he loves in this world is this dog. And this evil bitch fucking poisons this dog, and he's watching it suffer. Is the only thing about it that wasn't like, the dog, you could tell it wasn't a real dog, thank God, because it's like, it's not an easy scene to watch. It is really, really rough. Really, really rough.
I feel like that should have been the name for this instead. Really rough.
Yeah, dude, it's so good. It's weird. Like it's weird watching a show and going like, and an episode ends and you're like you feel bad on the inside, but it's so compelling that you need to watch what's happening next.
It's like that episode. It's like that episode of Sopranos, which is such a weird thing to reference. But that are you familiar with that? Have you watched it?
No, I've never actually watched the Sopranos.
Okay, then yeah. It's a really big show spoiler, so I won't say it.
I know there's so many like deaths of characters.
There's a character without going into detail who it was. There's a character that has no business dying that dies a good amount in the show, and it's so hard to watch that you're like, why the fuck is this happening? You know?
Well, it's like I always think of because I didn't make it all the way through, but I knew it happened. The Omar death on The Wire, right?
Yeah.
Like how much everyone loved Omar, and how he got killed off because he lived that kind of life, right? But like, it's always the characters that are people like, no, you can't kill them. And it's when people do, you're just like,
I know. I never watched Game of Thrones, but I do think that killing off the main character at the end of the first season was kind of a balls out move. Like,
well, yeah, fucking George R. R. Martin loves killing characters, though. He fucking just relishes on it. He has the most. I don't know if you know that there's a scene called the Red Wedding.
Yeah.
Where the best thing on the internet was watching YouTube reactions after it happened, because if you didn't know it was gonna happen, these people are like, what the fuck? And so people who knew it was happening would record people who didn't know it was happening and just go from that. Well, dude, the Riley death. Like Riley, like at the end of the 4th episode, gets attacked by the vampire and gets taken out, and you're like, fuck. But then at the very beginning of the 5th episode, he fucking comes to Aaron and he's like, let's go for a boat ride. And you're like, and the whole episode they're sitting in the boat and he's telling the story of how what happened and how he got attacked. And you're sitting there going, it was an hour of fucking dread because you knew what was going to come the entire episode. You're like, oh no, because they're in the middle of the ocean in a fucking boat.
Yeah.
And the fucking sun's about to come up, and it's like, and then it happens, and you're like, oh, because Riley was such a good character, man. He's so flawed, but he's so like, it's. You just sympathize for him so much because this man is like made a mistake, and it was a significant mistake. We went over that, but like the guy just seems like he was a pretty decent guy before that.
It's a character that you find yourself going like, man, this person fucked up so bad, but as like an audience, you want to root for that person to turn their life around. You want good things to happen to this person because like. All of us, we've all done some pretty fucked up shit at one point of our life, you know, and like stuff that a lot of people don't know about. Like, I haven't murdered anyone. That sounds very sinister, but I'm just saying, you know, like we've all done like horrible things that we regret, and that doesn't make us necessarily like bad people. It just means that we're flawed. So when that happens, you're just like, no, like you feel like you've been robbed of something.
Well, that you were talking about the love of two people who don't ever get that love. Him and Aaron are like that. Like they were kind of like into each other in high school, and like, but then like the world took them apart because they both wanted out of here so badly, and they never got to be like them. They never got to be like fully embrace being in love and being there and being with each other. Right? It was this kind of pure like just relationship that they had during the show of just two people when they sat there and talked about death, because basically those two kind of not hook up, but they're like friends because like she's the only one who like he really knew like he grew up with when he was there, and like when he came back she was pregnant because she got pregnant, but then she came back, and they don't really go into why or who, but she came back. And when she starts drinking the vampire's blood, like while everyone else is being healed, her body thought the baby was a parasite and got rid of it. Mm-hmm. And so this traumatic event for her is something that's very like that makes her like kind of embrace him again, because they're both fucking traumatized by what's happened to them in their lives. And they have this conversation that's so perfect about what they think happens after death. And it's a fucking relevant one, because then Erin retells this thing as she's dying at the end of the last episode. And it's just fucking heartbreaking, but it's also beautiful at the same time, you know?
Like, yeah, no, totally. And, the last time I was on the show, we briefly talked about Martyrs and how, for me, what makes that movie so special is it's a good examination of what happens right when you're about to die. Is there any like vindication, or is there anything? And I think this one speaks on that too. Any death scene that happens, there's usually like this really emotional thing that goes with it. And it's kind of like, what do we think about death? What do these people think about death? And what does it mean to be at the end of this life that you've lived, with your fuck ups and your good things and your bad things and your missed opportunities and all these things. And fuck, man, so good.
It's like this thing where it's like basically telling the story of like, you can't use faith as a religion for being a bad person, because like one of my favorite fucking things that in the entire show is like in the last episode, or I think it's the last episode, Riley's mom goes to Bev, "You've never been a good person," and it's like, yes, because this bitch is so evil, and she uses faith as her justification for being a shitty person, because she fucking poisons that dog like I talked about, and then she fucking poisons the goddamn priest, because I think she thinks that it's like he's like I think she's equating him to Jesus, and there's some kind of like she's trying to get him to come back because she knows all these miracles have been coming after he got home. But it's all because they're drinking fucking vampire blood and it's healing them. But man, it's just like, it's that Bev is such a fucking evil character, and it's just so like, it's always so like, it's just so frustrating when people use religion to justify shitty things. And that's so much of the show, because even the fucking preacher gets on it. Like, he starts going off like they're going to do this vampire revolution, but like praising it as like a reward from God, and you're like, dude, your view of religion has made it so that you're like twisting shit around to the fact that you like these horrible actions that you're doing, you're justifying with God, which is something that's happened how long, man? And like the Crusades, like in like we came over to America and like a bunch of religious people and fucking murdered an entire race of people because they weren't, one, they had our land, and two, they didn't like believe in their God. It's just like so much has been done and bad in the name of religion. And like, I think that there's just, Mike's just telling such a good story of how like the path, was it the path to evil is paved with good intentions, or is that the saying?
Yeah.
It's what the show is like this preacher doesn't have bad intentions, but like once he gets hit by this angel, and this angel as he calls it, and he becomes a vampire, he's doing things. He fucking murders Joe, sucks up his blood, and he's like, hey, I didn't feel bad about it, so God must think I'm cool. It's just it's something that like, you know, like that holy warriors, like people who do violent things in the name of God, whatever God they are, they do. And it's so interesting to see this happening in like with the vampire being the route that they're using to do that, because it's like it ties in horror, and it kind of goes, it makes it a little, it disconnects it a little bit from the real world, like a little, like that makes it a little more like, you know, like obtain, like consumable for a normal person, right? Like we're talking about what your wife like felt with after that Jonestown movie. That that putting the vampirism padding in there it makes it like way more digestible from like a lot of people, right?
And I also think that what makes all of Mike Flanagan's work so good is like a lot of it is right on Front Street and kind of blatant, but I think a lot of it has to do with like metaphorical stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like religion in general can be this blood-sucking fucking thing that ruins you.
Yeah.
I've seen so many good people in my life completely ruined by fanaticism. Like my whole family, they're not bad people. But dude, I haven't talked up until recently. I didn't talk to my dad for years and my brother for almost 2 years because of differences of opinion, whether it's like politics or religion. Like, just I think being a fanatic with anything, I think really infects people. And like I think the use of that in this is like very metaphorical for that.
Dude, and I think, and it's funny because we're talking about a lot of the bad things of what religion can do. I think that they do a good job of showing what religion can do for positives, with, especially with Riley and Joe, and what AA uses, how AA uses religion to like kind of give lost people a way back. You know what I mean? Like how religion is. If you don't know, AA, Alcoholics Anonymous, is very, very religious-based scheme, and Riley has to go and do this AA meetings because of his parole. But Riley and Joe both die with like a little bit of more hope because of AA and because of what this pastor or the preacher did for them, and like how he helped guide them back. Because when you're lost, like religion can be a thing that can guide you back, right? And I think you and I both have harked on like a lot of the things that can go wrong with it, but this show does show what religion can do for those who need it, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think that I think toxic religion. I think religion is dangerous. And just in general. But I think faith is so important to anyone. And it doesn't have to be in like a Jesus. It doesn't have to be in Buddha. It doesn't have to be anything. But I think just having a set core, like just a core set of values and ethics and like, you know, like me waking up in the morning and not going out and murdering someone has nothing to do with Jesus Christ. It has to do with my own faith that like, you know what, this is how you do not, and you do and do not act. And what's weird is like, you know, like I was saying earlier, I was so hurt by religion growing up that I became even more of a prick when it came to atheism until I also realized that I didn't believe in atheism either. You know, like like for me personally, I got to the point where I had to kind of develop my own spirituality of just like what makes me be a good person and my own set of beliefs. And I think that this is a good example of people finding that. And what's interesting is the people that find that are the people that end up being free.
Yeah. Well, it's the only person on this whole show, because everyone in this whole town gets turned into vampires except for Riley's little brother and then the girl in the wheelchair who gets healed. And the only person really out of all the people who were fanatical about this and don't like kind of see the light at the end are Bev. Bev is the only one who can't see because of her completely fanatical religion. She's the one who at the end is sitting there trying to dig a hole in the sand to get away because she doesn't want to die when the sun's coming. She's the only one. Everyone else, Riley's parents lead us fucking like they start singing a song at like a religion, like a song from church. They start singing a song because they know that they're going to their heaven, they're going to their God, they're going to whatever. That because they all believe that, and there was that like it's that they know that what happened to them isn't right, and that it's wrong. They all realize, like the big mechanic dude who's sitting there and he kind of was trying to route Bev in the correct direction during the finale of the show, and trying to like she's like, oh, you were only supposed to turn people, we said, and he's like, but he was always nice to me, and that wasn't enough for her because he wasn't the one like, you know, going to church every single day and doing everything that Bev thought was right, you know?
Mm-hmm. No, totally. I agree.
Yeah, there's just so much in this show, and I think it's like literally, it's like, it's so hard to tackle everything, but man, the story Mike tells is so good. It's just so well acted, and you get the story of Sheriff Hassan, and like how all he wants to do is be able to raise his son and in peace and not be, you know, tracked down by the like authorities, and like you get the redemption of a character who killed someone in a drunk driving accident, and you get another lost person in Erin and what she's been through and how she's been lost and like doesn't want to relive the same life her mother lived and her evil mother and all this stuff, and it's all these stories, and they tell so much. And really, it's like 7 hours of time, but that's not that much of time, but they tell it so well that you like, there's so many characters you feel like, and when like Riley dies, you fucking, it hurts. And when Erin is being attacked by the vampire and she's like dying, but she's like cutting his fucking wings so he can't get away. Mm-hmm. It's just so like, it's like heartbreaking yet like, yes, at the same time.
Well, it's also like this idea of like, this is my end. How do I go out? Do I go out? Yeah. Do I go out a good person trying to help others, or do I just let it go? You know, and like I've always admired any movie or show or book or anything that have characters that know that they're at their end and they still choose to do the right thing.
Yeah, it's. I mean, you think of like. I think of like Underwater at the end, right? Like where this character is like, where like she's like, oh, I'm gonna take this motherfucker out because if he gets out, this thing gets out, it's gonna destroy the world.
See, I admire that about Kristen Stewart's character, because I'm gonna be completely honest. If Cthulhu was about to chomp my ass, I wouldn't give a shit if anyone lived, because I'm going. You know, I would actually not save the day just on principle. Like, I'm dying. Let's see what Cthulhu can do while I'm gone.
So you're basically saying you're the pothead from the end of Cabin in the Woods. That's who you are, Jerry. I'm gonna smoke this cup bong and go out high as fuck and fuck the rest of the world. Like, I think of things like that. I think of things like Alien 3, where like she's like, oh, I'm jumping in or Terminator 2, like I'm jumping the self-sacrifice to do what is right and to try to prevent something bad from happening to the rest of the world. It's just like it's one of the things that's like, it's heartbreaking, but it's like it's better than like, I don't know. I mean, it feels better than like when the villainous character just like gets away with something, you know, like, or kills someone and gets away with it, right? It's that thing where it's like, okay, the good guys all. I mean, I don't know. I don't mind when everyone dies as long as it feels like, I don't know. It just doesn't feel hopeless at the end.
Yeah, yeah. No, I'm joking. I would totally say.
I know, Jerry. I know, man. I'm just giving.
I'm like that Chris Redd's character in Popstar. Or did I? It's like, no, I didn't. Oh shit, dude.
I've never seen Popstar.
That is a movie that that was a movie that I like had no business being as good as it was. Like, I still to this day think it's Lonely Island's best thing ever.
I love Andy Samberg. Like, Brooklyn Nine-Nine is one of my favorite shows for the last 10 years, and I'm so sad to end it. My wife and I have the last 2 episodes on the DVR and still haven't watched them because I kind of don't want like it to end, you know what I mean? So, yeah, we're talking about Flanagan and Hush here after this, but man, this show is it does everything that I appreciate, and like it respects you for investing your time in it. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree, 100%.
It just makes you feel like it's worth everything you've done. So. Oh, man, we've been going 2 hours, and we got Hush to talk about. So I think we could wrap up this, man, and then we'll go and So, do you want to pimp your stuff again? Jerry is okay on Jerry is just okay on Twitter, right?
Yeah,
that's your Twitter account.
That's
and you're out.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Your album's coming out here on Halloween. And you just released a track.
On Halloween, I released a track called Spells yesterday. It's one of my favorite things I've ever done.
It's dope, man.
Here's the deal. Like, I've spent so many years of my life saying, man, I wish I could score a Halloween movie someday. The track I released yesterday is me saying, not that I wish I could, it's hire me for the next fucking reboot.
Dude, that's like something that a fan film would do. Like, it's like, that's how good it is. Like, if you put that on a Halloween fan film, they don't get as much attention as the Friday the 13th ones, but there are a lot
There's some good ones.
Yeah, Halloween fan films out there. So check that out. And when's the magazine with your interviews with the Halloween people coming out?
That's going to be for Wicked Horror, a website.
Okay, cool.
Probably closer to the release. The movie comes out the 15th, so I need to touch base with Universal to see when the embargo's up. But yeah. And they're video interviews too, so it's not going to be just like writing stuff. It'll be Jamie Lee Curtis probably telling me how much of a fucking idiot I look like.
Dude, did you see the pictures of her going to that festival?
Oh, Beyond Fest,
with the t-shirt cannon.
Dude, I love Beyond Fest so fucking much, and I was so bummed I couldn't go. But yeah.
Where was it in L.A.?
Yeah, it's in L.A. It's every year they bring just the coolest movies. And what's cool about Beyond Fest, unlike a lot of other festivals, you don't have to go to the whole festival. Like, if you just want to watch one movie, you could buy a ticket just for that. So yeah,
that's cool. Yeah, well, dude, we'll pimp that out when it's officially released. And I'll probably put it out on as soon as you find it or find out when it's being released, just let me know and I'll put it on the.
Also, really quickly, the Halloween issue of Remind magazine, 100% about Halloween, is now on newsstands everywhere. So if anyone goes to Barnes and Noble, Walmart, buy like 4 copies of that and only read my stuff in it.
Yeah.
No, really, it's great. But I'm excited about that one.
I got to pick that up. You said that, and I was out today looking for an out for a high lung, and I ran out of time going everywhere. But I'm gonna go out tomorrow, and I'll probably go look and see if I can track that.
Plus, it's like $6, which is really good for a magazine.
Yeah. Okay, man. Everyone else, Murder Moose podcast or murdermoose.com, and then Murder Moose Pod is the Twitter. There's an Instagram now for Murder Moose Pod somewhere. So that will be. I'm just posting pictures and stuff and talking about stuff like. So that's not a big thing, but I'm just trying to get some more attraction stuff. Okay, everybody. Thank you for listening, and we will be back next week with Hush. So have a good one, everyone, and we will see you soon. Bye.